in, just now in California, our new friend Dulal Prabhu, I was sharing a lot about this grand mission of Srila Saraswati Thakur. We are, nowadays the Gaudiya group is quite widespread and manifesting in different ways, but everyone is united under the banner of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He's very, very important for us. And our grandfather Guru, our Padam Guru, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj, he wrote a very beautiful pranam mantra. He wrote several pranam mantras, prayers to Srila Saraswati Thakur. But one of them in particular is very wonderful, very special, and it was especially appreciated by Srila Sridhar Maharaj himself. And he made some comment about it too, how this verse that he said he feels that he's captured Saraswati Thakur in a cage of poetry. And he said, like a royal Bengal tiger. He's captured him in this verse, and this is one of the outstanding points about the compositions of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He has this incredible ability to present truth in a very concise way, like one line will just contain multitudes, say so much, and also very sweet and beautiful poetry. Marie's asking pranam mantra. Okay, I'm sorry. So pranam means giving respect, and so pranam mantra means a particular mantra, a particular prayer, which is devoted to a particular deity, guru, Vaishnava, as a way of honoring them in a specific way. And generally there will be like one like it's like a special thing. There won't be tons of pranam mantras, but like we traditionally chant for our Guru Srila Govinda Maharaj, one pranam mantra. For Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, there's one that is regularly chanted. Although there may be a few others, generally there will be one in particular. So this is one of the ones that Srila Sridhar Maharaj wrote about Srila Saraswati Thakur. Nikila Bhuvana Maya, Chinna Vichina Karchi, Vibhuda Bahula Mrigya, Mukti Mahanta Dachi, Shitiliti Raga, Radhava Deshadani, Vilasatu Hridi Nityam, Bhakti Siddhantavani. Very, very beautiful prayer of Sridhar Maharaj. And it seems to be like, I haven't heard this directly stated, but it seems like there's some, in the way that Srila Sridhar Maharaj explains this verse, it seems that he was, in the way that he's presented his angle of vision here, it seems like he's referencing Vamanadev. Vamanadev is this avatar of Krishna who expands into this giant form, and in 3 steps, he crosses all the universes. And so in the way Srila Sridhar Maharaj explains this verse, he's describing what were the 3 grand steps of Srila Saraswati Thakur. So the first is Nikila Bhuvana Maya Chinna Vichina Karchi, meaning that the whole plane, Bhuvana Maya, means the whole world of illusion, the whole plane of illusion, the plane of exploitation, the plane of Maya, the plane of selfishness. He Chinna Vichina, he slashed it to shreds. He cut it to pieces. And then Vibhuda Bahula Mrigya Mukti Mahanta Dachi means that he put an end to the mad search of the scholars after mukti, after liberation. Normally, especially in the Vedic world, mukti liberation is something that it holds a lot of weight. It's high currency. Mukti is what everybody wants. Mukti is the stuff, right? And it's actually quite revolutionary, that in the presentation of Mahaprabhu, mukti is something that is derided. In the teachings of, more broadly speaking, we can say in the teachings of pure devotion, of bhakti in general, but particularly emphasized by Mahaprabhu, and this is mentioned in his Shikshashtakam prayers, this nadanam, najanam, nasundaram, kavitam va jagadeesha kamaye mama janmani, janmanishare, bhavatad bhakta, haitu kitva. He's saying he's not interested in anything on this side, attaining achievement on this side or the other side. He doesn't want to enjoy more, or he doesn't want, and neither does he want to become free from the consequences of enjoyment. But, mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhakti or haitu kitva. I'm only interested in love for you, pure love for you. And so normally, mukti, the aspiration for liberation, it's a celebrated thing. It's something that's celebrated. It's something that persons will go through extreme austerities for, and in the expectations of having to go through those austerities for many lifetimes in order to achieve liberation, right? But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he put an end to that, showing what is the dignity and what is the superiority of the plane of devotion, pure love. So generally, these are the two main obstacles that we face in the world, right? These tendencies for bhukti and mukti, the tendencies for enjoyment and for renunciation, right? And so with his first two steps, he's putting an end to these two things. And then the third point here, Shitti Litti Vidi. This is an interesting point. Now we're entering into a finer plane, because so generally these are the two things considered to be the obstacles, right? Exploitation, renunciation. But then once you enter into the plane of devotion, there's another obstacle. And what is that? That is too much rigidity, too much fixation upon rules, regulations. There's this famous prayer of Raghunath Das Goswami, one of our principal teachers, acharyas, and then Bhakti Vinod, one of our more modern gurus, he picks that up in one of his parallel verses. And there's this expression that if you're too much attracted to the reverential mood of devotion, the majestic mood of devotion, you'll be hurled down to the plane of Vaikuntha. So quite a radical thing, because what is Vrindavan, Krishna's abode? It is the plane of spontaneous devotion, natural, pure devotion from the heart, automatic, rag, anurag means natural attraction from the heart, not based on any type of calculation, not based on scriptural rules, but what is coming from the heart, in a very natural and automatic way. So then this is the third point mentioned about Srila Saraswati Thakur. Shitti Litti Vidi. Vidi is referring to emphasis on the rules, regulations, scripture. Shitti Litti means he slackens that. Didn't abandon it, but loosened it a bit. Why? Because he brought out this central point in the practice of devotion. Why are we doing all of these things in the first place? Is it for ourselves? No. Are we following so many practices so that we can gain benefit? No, it is, Krishna Santosh. One place Srila Sridhar Maharaj, she says, this is our slogan, for the satisfaction of Krishna, right? Krishna Santosh, for the satisfaction of Krishna. Smart, there's that Satatam, what is that? Smartavyana Jatuchid, Satatam Vishnur Smaranam. There's this expression, perhaps in the Upanishads, I can't remember where, but saying that all of the injunctions and prohibitions that are given in the scriptures, they are servants of these two principles: to always remember the Lord and to never forget him. The rules in and of themselves, they don't mean very much. But the whole purpose behind them is to promote God consciousness, promote Krishna consciousness. So if a rule is serving that purpose, is supporting that, it should be adopted, it should be followed. But if the rule is inhibiting that, then it should be dropped. And so in light of that higher consideration, Srila Saraswati Thakur made some adjustments. You know, one of the prominent examples of that is the observance of Ekadashi, right? I think everyone in our group here is, we don't have anybody totally brand new in our group today. Everyone is somewhat familiar here. So Ekadashi, right? And welcome, Ross. Great to see you with us. And also Jayadev has joined us, Narottam Prabhu. Beautiful group today. So like for example, you know, Dulal, who he was previously in a different following in a different lineage, and he shared that on the day of Ekadashi, you know, they would do a complete fast. They do a water fast, and that's actually the injunction given in the scripture. You know, that you'll do a full fast on the Ekadashi day. You know, that's the rule in the scripture. But Saraswati Thakur, and that's still practiced, you know, widely. But Saraswati Thakur, he made this point, you know, that Ekadashi, the following of Ekadashi is not so that we can gain some credits, so that we can advance further in our pursuit for liberation. That's not because that's how many take Ekadashi, you know, and I've come across persons like that, but both who they see it as a way of gaining advantage, either in the plane of, you know, worldly prosperity or in spiritual gain. You know, on both sides, people follow Ekadashi for that purpose. But Saraswati Thakur, he made this, oh wow, Ananda's tuned in as well. Welcome, London. You're freezing cold there, aren't you? It's so cold in our temple there.
Yeah, I got the full gear on right now.
The heating's very expensive, so they don't. So Saraswati Thakur, he made this point, right, that Ekadashi is not for our benefit. Ekadashi, like from the highest devotional perspective, Ekadashi is the day when Krishna, in his aprakrita lila, his human-like play, he is in need of more. He needs more attention. He needs more food. He needs more energy. So Ekadashi is not a day when we sit quietly and fast, but it's a day when we need to give more energy to Krishna. And here's the thing, if we're fully fasting, you know, I would say like 99% of human beings, you know, they're going to be somewhat incapacitated, you know, if they're doing a full fast, you know, from water even. Some are doing like that. Then, you know, most cases, you know, you're not going to be as fit and able as you normally are. You know? So then how are you going to be able to offer more energy to Krishna? You know? So Saraswati Thakur made this adjustment. We'll do a half-day fast. You know? And then we will take anukalpa, you know, means like close to fasting. So more simple food. You know, we will abstain from foods that are especially nourishing to the body. And so then we're just, you know, there's kind of like that, what's that word? There's like that, what's that word I'm looking for? That magic point. Somebody knows this word. There's that, you know, there's that particular point where you're like maxing yourself out, you know, but not to the point where you can't do anything. Like there's that. What did you say?
Burnout.
Yeah, no, but like there's that golden point. There's that like very particular ratio, you know, where you're giving everything.
Is it called a tipping point?
No, there's a word like the magic spot or something that I'm looking for. I can't think of the word, but
is it in reference to fasting or
no,
The sweet spot. The
Sweet spot.
right?
Sweet
Thank
spot.
you. Thank you. I was looking for a very colloquial expression. Nothing.
Emphasis on the sweet in this context.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shiva. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that there's that sweet spot, right? Where you're like totally maxing yourself out, but not so that you're incapacitated, not so you're totally burned out, but where you're actually like getting this exhilaration out of giving everything. You know? So there's that very particular sweet spot, you know, that we're aiming for on Ekadashi. So this is an example of one of the adjustments that radical, revolutionary adjustments that Saraswati Thakur made in the cause of devotion. And then Radha, Radesha, Dani, and then adding here, and he gave the wealth of Shri Radha's Lord, you know, Radha Krishna of Vrindavan, the sweetness of Vrindavan. So slackening, you know, this focus on overly reverential worship, and too much emphasis on rules and regulations, gave us the sweetness of Vrindavan. And then finally, the last line is extraordinary. Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhakti Siddhantavani. You know, it's like a benediction. You know, that may that Bhakti Siddhanta, and there's also a play on words here. Bhakti Siddhantavani, you know, Bhakti Siddhanta means the conclusions of devotion, the teachings of devotion, the message of pure devotion, Bhakti Siddhantavani. So it's like, it also can mean like the message of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, but more broadly, the message of pure devotion. Vilasatu, Hridi Nityam, may that play within your heart eternally. You know, may that divine message of Saraswati Thakur, you know, may that divine vibration of Saraswati Thakur, may that play within your heart eternally. So this is a very wonderful pranam mantra of Srila Sridhar Maharaj for Saraswati Thakur. And as I said, you know, we're so indebted to him, you know, and he came by the specific prayer of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Right, and this is our Gurudev. There's this beautiful song that we will sing sometimes. Our Gurudev liked so much. It was written by kind of an unknown Vaishnava who wasn't even a disciple of Saraswati Thakur. He was in some other mission. It's quite interesting, but he came in connection with the disciples of Saraswati Thakur, and without even meeting him in person, he was so impressed by his disciples that he gathered this very strong impression about him and wrote this extraordinary song, Jayore, Jayore Jai, Paramahamsa Mahashai. It's in our Kirtan guide. And it's kind of summarizing the whole life and Leela activities of Saraswati Thakur. But the second to last verse, the penultimate verse, our Gurudev appreciated very much because the author of this song could recognize that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you know, a parshad, an associate of the Lord, eternal associate of the Lord, you know, it was by his prayer that Saraswati Thakur came. You know, Shri Gauranga Parishad Thakur Bhaktivinoda Dina Hina Patitera Bandhu, and saying that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you know, Dina, he like feeling this sorrow, right? The Vaishnavas are para dukkha dukhi. Their only sorrow is the sorrow of others. And so feeling this compassion upon the souls of this world, and it was a you know, in the line of you know, in the, you know, for Gaudiya Vaishnavism, it was a sorry time. Let's just say it like that. It was a sorry time, and you know, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the followers of Mahaprabhu, had a terrible reputation. Where was what Marie? Sorry, are you talking about that pranam mantra or?
Whatever it was you were just quoting.
Oh, that verse.
My scalp was prickling, so I need to look it up later.
I published it on my Facebook page. You can find it there.
Okay, all right. So I read it, but I hadn't read the. Okay, I need to go back and read that again.
Yeah, no, it isn't the vibration to it is so powerful. Actually,
I don't hear that on Facebook.
one of our god sisters actually made a rap song with it because it has this beat to it. Nikila Bhuvanamaya, Chinna Vichina Karchi, Vibhuda Bahula Mrigya Mukti Mahandadachi, Shiti Diti Vidi Ragarada Videsha Nani, Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhakti Sanantavani. What was I saying? So it was a sorry time in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, because Mahaprabhu's movement is about love, right? And it's about inclusiveness, right? But then that also leaves things open for, a free-for-all. And so, in the name of Vaishnavism, in the name of Mahaprabhu, all kinds of things were going on, and there wasn't the conception of pure, there wasn't this awareness of the importance of pure practices. So there was a lot of mixing of sinful activity with devotional practices, and there wasn't a clear understanding of some of these foundations, right? That we're here and that's there, and that the holy name is a spiritual vibration, and if we are mixing in the mud of illusion and exploitation, we cannot expect to receive that holy name. And some of these principles, and there was one Vaishnava scholar at the time who identified 13 different groups who in different ways were misrepresenting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In different ways, there's a spectrum, right? Some putting more emphasis on bloodline. Like today, even today, in fact, one of our god sisters, like her family's in the line of Advaita Acharya. And so they put emphasis on the body connection, on the blood connection. Then there were those who would, mix intoxication into their practices, though even going in way off, and the, tantric stuff and, all kinds of stuff, So there were all these different groups who were misrepresenting Mahaprabhu's teachings, and the educated section of society, the respectable section of this society, they had a very low opinion of what Mahaprabhu's people were about. And our Srila Sridhar Maharaj, our grandfather guru, said his father was very much against the followers of Mahaprabhu, and like they were kind of like seen as the bums, and you can't get a job, you're an outcast in society, then you join Mahaprabhu. Yeah, we get it. Yeah. So Saraswati, so Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur coming, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur was so perfectly positioned, to represent the dignity of Mahaprabhu's Sampradaya. He was a magistrate employed by the British government. He was respected and appreciated by the British government. He was mixing, he was very close friends with the brother of Rabindranath Tagore, the Nobel laureate, prize winner, very close friends with Dwijendranath, his brother. So like he was mixing in these upper class circles. And when he showed in his journey, as his Leela, he showed himself like arriving to the conclusion, after making so much comparison, he arrived. Of course, we see this as his Leela, as his divine play, that he arrived at this conclusion that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's presentation was the highest, and Srimad Bhagavatam was giving the conclusion of the Vedas. And then he was so perfectly positioned to present that, to a cultured section of society. And he did a lot of work, in that regard. And that is a whole other, discussion, what the extensive work that he did. But the thing about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is that he was working within the existing structure of society, and he realized that he was kind of like laying the foundations, paving the way, but he also realized that he needed someone else. He needed a revolutionary to come and really start a movement. And so he prayed to the Lord, please send one of your own men, and then in response to that, his own son, Srila Saraswati Thakur, appeared. And there were, around, from his birth, he was surrounded by miracles. He was, first of all, it's very interesting. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj points this out in one of his compositions about, actually, we should read that. There's a prayer in separation. It's a that Srila Sridhar Maharaj wrote, extraordinary. The refrain of is it like 8 stanzas? And the refrain is very touching. Yatra so tattva shigram kripananayana, like begins like that. Wherever that great soul may be, please quickly bring me there. It's an extraordinary. Actually, we should at least read that one verse. Maybe I have all my copies upstairs. There's one here. So in this one stanza, it's particularly beautiful. He draws this comparison, that Mahaprabhu, right? Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he appears in Navadvip, right? And departs in Jagannath Puri. And then for Srila Saraswati Thakur, just the other way, Saraswati Thakur appears in Puri, in where Mahaprabhu disappeared, where Mahaprabhu left, Saraswati Thakur appeared. And then he departed, technically Calcutta, but within that Gauda Mandal, within that region of Mahaprabhu's pastimes in the Navadvip area. So it's very, very interesting. But I would like to read at least that stanza. It's extraordinary. Yeah, so it's called Shri Dayita Das Dashakam. Dayita Das is one of the internal names of Srila Saraswati Thakur. Literally means servant of the beloved, indicating Radharani. So let me just find this. Here it is. It's the 5th verse. I'll read the Sanskrit. Gorendur Asta Shaila Kim Kanaka Gano Hema Rij Jambu Nadya Avir Bhuta Pravarshir Nikila Jana Padam Plavayan Dava Dagdam Gauravir Bhava Bhumo Rajasi Cha Sahasa Samju Gopa Swayam Swam Yatra Sho Tatra Shigram Kripana Nayana He Niyatam Kinkarodam. Drawing up the pure golden waters of the Jambu River mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, has this golden cloud arisen on the mountain where the gold, so here golden cloud is referring to Saraswati Thakur, has this golden cloud arisen on the mountain, that's indicating Puri, Jagannath Puri, where the golden moon, Gaurachandra Mahaprabhu, descended, set. So where the golden moon of Mahaprabhu descended, this golden cloud of Saraswati Thakur has arisen, just to shower down torrents of rain upon the whole countryside that was scorched by the forest fire of threefold sufferings. So this golden cloud of Saraswati Thakur is raining down and giving relief, to the soul suffering in this world. Then suddenly conceal himself in the dust of the land of the advent of Sri Gauranga. So then after appearing in the land of Mahaprabhu's departure, he's leaving in the land of Mahaprabhu's appearance. And then, O Dinanayan, wherever that great master may be now, please quickly take the servitor to that place. And we need a lot of time to really appreciate the Sanskrit. And unfortunately, I'm not, a Sanskritian, but there's so many layers of meaning in this composition of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. There's layers of this expression, Dina Nayan. Dina Nayan is actually the Nayana Manjari, is considered to be the internal identity of Srila Saraswati Thakur in Vrindavan, his place in Vrindavan, Nayana Manjari. So that's the reference, Nayana Mani. Nayana means jewel of the eye, Nayana Mani. Nayan is eye. so it's a reference to that name of Saraswati Thakur, but it also then this expression Dina Nayan. Dina means poor, and Nayan is eye. So oh, me saying, oh my poor eyes, like bereft of the vision of my divine master. Oh my sorrowful eyes, my poor eyes. Please, I'm suffering in separation. Please give me that divine vision. And then also Nayana, also another meaning of Nayana is hero, like a heroic person. So Dina and Dina, fallen, poor. So Dina Nayan also means like savior of the fallen, like hero of the fallen. So and there's so much more that could be said too, but I'm not expert in these things. So there were these very interesting things surrounding the appearance of Saraswati Thakur, and he actually, and you can go there today. His family home was like literally down the street from the Jagannath temple. There's a Gaudiya Math there today. It's just down the road from the Jagannath temple. And there's this, he was born, another interesting point is he was born with his umbilical cord wrapped around him like a Brahmin thread. And then another miraculous occurrence around his birth was that when he was just about 6 months old, it was time for the something like that, very young. It was time for let me think, he was born in February and then Rath Yatra is around July. So yeah, maybe like around 6 months, something like that. So then it comes time for Rath Yatra, and they're just down the road from the Jagannath temple. And so his mother, someone can remind me her name, she brings him out like this newborn, and the Jagannath cart stopped right in front and wouldn't move. And maybe someone can remember, was it like a few days? It was like an extended period. Maybe it was overnight. They couldn't move the cart. And then the pujari at a certain point brought this garland from Jagannath to this baby, and then they were able to continue. I probably have some details wrong, but it was something like that. There was this very mystical exchange that went on. Bhagavati Devi, oh thank you, Chintamani, Srimati Bhagavati Devi. And we're told Saraswati Thakur actually had a very deep affection for her, Bhagavati Devi. We don't hear so much about her, but or I haven't, but we've heard that. And our Gurudev, he mentions that later on when Saraswati Thakur was, it's interesting because actually Saraswati Thakur in the beginning, he was more inclined to Nirjan Bhajan, to practicing in a solitary way. Practicing is the wrong word. These souls don't practice. They're doing it. They're living it. But he wanted to do his bhajan. He wanted to do his service in a solitary way. And he was like in the forest of Mayapur, chanting so many thousands of names. Oh, Jayadev is saying the garland fell. Yeah, perhaps that's it. Perhaps that's it. The garland fell onto him. Perhaps that's it. Yes, Bhagavati brought him close to the deity and the garland fell. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, thank you, Jayadev. But so Saraswati Thakur, initially he was very reluctant to take up any, wide scale missionary work. And it was, his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, had to put pressure on him. But one of the things that he told him, our Gurudev said, which motivated him, is that your mother will be very happy with you if you will take up this work. So and so many other interesting things, from the very beginning, from his childhood, there were many incidents, showing who he was. We were discussing with Dulal just a few days ago some of those incidents when he's like 5 or 6 years old, and his father had left out some mangoes, and he goes and eats the mangoes, and then his father comes along and says, "Oh, my dear boy, normally we offer first to the deity." and then you take the prasadam. So in the future, just wait until we've already offered it. And he took that so much to heart that he made a vow to never eat mangoes again. And he followed that his whole life. And then in the end, in his later years, some of his disciples would make this chutney with green mango, unripe mango, and he would accept that, but he never took ripe mango again. And we also hear, he always had this spirit of a fighter. Srila Sridhar Maharaj actually said he compared him to Mike Tyson, because Mike Tyson made some statement like, I am the greatest, right? Something like this. And so that was Saraswati Thakur's mood, but not about himself, but about his gurus, like my gurus are the best. And he had this challenging mood, and there was one public talk he gave in some grand assembly, and he made he issued this challenge, like I'm here to establish my guru's conception as the highest, and I'm ready to take on anybody, more or less, like that, in that mood. And even when he was a child, when he was at school, he would get into fights with the other boys, the other children, like standing up for the teachings of Mahaprabhu, and we hear that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father, even expressed to him on one occasion, I'm a little worried about you, my boy. Maybe you need to tone it down a bit, try and be more harmonious. And Saraswati Thakur's like, don't worry, I know what I'm doing, And they had this interesting contrast, in their natures. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's spirit was very accommodating. He was working within society and accommodating. And you find some of his articles. He's saying, he's speaking of so many different religions. We're brothers and sisters in faith and all these things. But Saraswati Thakur was not like that at all. He was. We hear our Gurudev would tell that occasion his father Bhaktivinoda was meeting with some sahajya, what we call sahajya, some type of Babaji imitation, some type of in some way, imitating the practices without the real essence. And Srila Saraswati Thakur gave his obeisance to us, because normally the children in India give their respects to their parents first thing in the morning. But that morning he saw his father talking to this man, and so he gave him respects from like 100 feet away, And then this man is asking, "Oh, who's that boy? Oh, he's my son. Oh, he looks so bright, and why is he staying so far away? Oh, he's made a vow he won't come within 100 feet of a sahajya, and you're first class sahajya." This was his spirit, And then later, when I also heard another story from our Gurudev, that later when he was in that early period in Mayapur and like just starting his mission, he had very few followers, resources at that time, and people, and he was becoming known. He was already kind of well known because his father was very famous and respected, but there were people who would come to him because his scholarship was becoming more and more known, his brilliance, and so people would come to him, and scholars would come to him, and he always had this mood of like debate and establishing Mahaprabhu's conception. And Gurudev, our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, he said that Srila Sridhar Maharaj told him that he remembered, maybe as a young teenager, I believe he was overhearing a conversation, because I think it was like one of his uncles was some type of a guru. And so Sridhar Maharaj remembers overhearing this conversation about this new, brilliant young man who was in Mayapur, debating with everyone, but he used this analogy of when a bull is getting ready to fight, and it's like kind of pawing the ground, and they described him like that, you know, that type of spirit, you know. And, you know, coming out very clearly, you know, with the teachings of Vaishnavism as superior to all else. There, you know, there is this famous, you know, because this is one of kind of like the ongoing debates, right? Brahmanism versus Vaishnavism, right? And so there was this one conference that went on, it was like a few days, went on for a few days, and I believe Bhaktivinoda Thakur had actually been invited to attend as a speaker, but he couldn't go, and so he sent Saraswati Thakur instead, and Saraswati Thakur handled it in a very brilliant way. It went on for something like 3 days, and he had a slot every day to speak, and so his subject was Brahmins and Vaishnavas, and so for like the first 2 days, he glorified Brahmins, you know, and quoting so many verses from the scriptures, you know, and naturally all the Brahmins becoming very happy, and and then finally, in the after that, he gave a talk about Vaishnavas, you know, and how, you know, okay, we've established Brahmins are so great, but listen to how wonderful Vaishnavas are, you know. And I have, there's actually a book published on it. I haven't read it, but from what I've understood it, the way he went about this was more or less, he established that Brahmins are supreme within this world. Like Brahmins are at the top of this world, but Vaishnavas are beyond this world. You know, they're in a far higher class. And so, but he had everyone so convinced that at the end of this talk, there was this massive like mob that came, because they're thinking, oh, we've just heard how glorious the Vaishnavas are. Here's a Vaishnava in front of us. And so there was like this mob that gathered around, and you know, one of the things that is mentioned in the scriptures is the glories of the foot dust, the foot water of the Vaishnavas. So this crowd madly gathered around him. Like this is Saraswati Thakur. This is like the high vibration that he held. This was his level of potency. You know, there was another time he gave a talk at a university, and he quotes this line of Saraswati Thakur saying that all education is just like a load for a donkey or an ass to carry. Like all mundane education is absolutely, he quoted this at a university and he could get away with it. Like this is who Saraswati Thakur was. Like this was the space that he carried, you know. But back in this, going back to this conference, so this crowd, like, and it was actually like getting to a point of danger, like he could be crushed. And so there was one intelligent person in the group who they like got a bucket of water. They dunked Saraswati Thakur's feet in the water, and then they're like throwing out his foot water, and then the crowd was pacified, you know. Like this was the type of energy that he roused up in the group, you know. So you know, Saraswati Thakur had a lot to deal with, and this was one of the things, like this kind of like very stereotyped conception of Vaishnavism, you know, with you know, emphasis on bloodline and Brahminical qualities and birth, all these things, culture, you know, culture is good, but the spiritual essence should always be foremost, right? So like this was the kind of stuff we had to deal with them. And there's one very, very funny story that we heard from our Gurudev. This was back in his early years in Mayapur, Rajapatan, I think it was called, this small place that he had. And as I said, you know, there were people who were coming to visit him, you know, his fame was spreading. And so there was one gentleman, Mayavadi of the impersonalist line, who had come to discuss some points with him. And then it came time for lunch. and there was a devotee. She was a lady, and you could tell, you know, they have their way of knowing these things, that she came from a lower caste. And she was attending the Saraswati Thakur, and it came time for lunch. And so she came in with a plate of prasad for Saraswati Thakur, and she, oh, you know, Prabhupada, he's known as Prabhupada, you know, here's your prasad, and she left it there. And you know, like in the traditional Vedic culture, you won't touch food that has been prepared by some, or even touched, or even if someone's shadow, you know, from a lower caste has crossed over your food, you know. That happened to my mother, you know. My father knows Hindi, so, you know, these people, my mother's shadow crossed over someone's food, and they're like, throw it away, you know. Like this is the type of culture. You won't sit at the same table and eat with people of a lower caste, right? So for this gentleman visiting Saraswati Thakur, it was I have a Ramananda. Is this Ramananda in San Jose, or Ramananda?
Yes, Vishaka. Didi.
He's telling me to share this expression. He declared totalitarian war against Maya and even all other existing conceptions of religion. This was one of our sannyasis, Goswami Maharaj. He wrote this as a caption about him. So this gentleman visiting Saraswati Thakur, he's observing this interaction that this woman has brought in this prasad, and he's shocked, and then he says, "You're gonna eat that? Like, you're gonna eat that?" And Saraswati Thakur said to him, "Well, let me think. What was it? I'm trying to have to get the sequence right." He said, it's prasad, right? It is prasad. So there's no question of it becoming contaminated, right? Prasad cannot become contaminated. But then he added on to that. He said, but besides that, you know, she's a, no. So I got it the wrong way around. He said, no. He said she's a Vaishnava. I think he said first, like, she's a Vaishnava. Like, I'm not considering her caste. She's a Vaishnava. So anything that comes from her is pure. That was what he said. And then he added on to that, but besides that, it's prasadam. And prasadam can never be contaminated. And he said, so even if you gave it to me, I would still take it. Because he's like, you're like in a Mayavadi, like we consider you, you know, to be something lower. Like, I wouldn't want to take food from an impersonalist like you, you know, but it's prasad. So even if you gave it to me, I would eat it. Like, this was the kind of spirit that he came out with. You know? And then eventually he established a small center in Calcutta. One of his disciples, they had like their family home, some rented family home, and they gave an upper room, like very small. They started. He had like an upstairs room, you know. That's how he started his mission. And then they got the Bagh Bazaar Math, which was like their flagship math in Calcutta, and then expanded into this huge mission of 64 temples across India, you know. At a certain point, he made this comment, you know, I started out alone with nothing, and now I have 500 men who all say what I say. No, he inspired, you know, this level of dedication. And he was just utterly revolutionary. Oh my God, we're already out of time and we haven't even gotten started. You know, he was so revolutionary. And he made, you know, our Gurudev made this point that at the time, nobody could understand him, you know, and because he was breaking the rules, you know. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he made a comparison to Napoleon, you know, in the Austro-Hungarian War. And initially the French side was losing, and then they appointed this new young general, Napoleon. They started winning, gaining the upper hand. And then meanwhile, the other side, they're all like in a panic. And then the king, calls some of his men, like, what happened? We were winning. And his generals told him, oh, they've just appointed this new general and he doesn't know how to fight properly. That was their excuse. Because the general strategy was playing it safe, right? You attack the weaker sections of the enemy army, and then you work your way out. But Napoleon's strategy was the opposite. You would attack the strongest point, then everything else will topple. Like a very bold approach. And this was Saraswati Thakur's mood. So breaking the rules, changing the traditional approach, but he was winning. Because he's dealing with the actual essential principles of devotion, and nobody could understand it. There are people who tried to kill him. There were those who felt threatened by him because he's coming out like with this vibrant movement. People can recognize purity, people can recognize authenticity. And so he was attracting a lot of people. And then there were some groups who felt threatened, like their guru business is going to be ruined by that. And then there were others who would just genuinely, their minds were boggling and they could not understand what he's doing. And there was one, he introduced he gave Brahmin initiation to non-Brahmins. He introduced the sannyas order within Mahaprabhu's line. There was one occasion where he had one of his disciples changed clothes with him, because he was under threat of his life, and they had to whisk him away. Another thing that was revolutionary is that he was boldly utilizing modern technology, using wealth in order to present a dignified, front of, what is Mahaprabhu's mission. When he went to Vrindavan in a motor car, in the 1930s, which was unheard of. That for someone to have a motor car in India in the 1930s, that's already huge. And then to go to Vrindavan, the place of Rup, Sanatan, there's this example of our previous acharyas, teachers, living lives of extreme austerity, extreme simplicity, just wearing loincloths, little cloths, no shoes, sleeping under trees, living on buttermilk and dried chapatis, begging for food now and again. That's the example they showed. And now this upstarts riding in a big motor car, using all this Western technology. People could not understand him at all. Many of them closed their door. We hear all the temples except for the Radha Raman temple. They closed their doors to him. They could not understand what he's about. But this was Saraswati Thakur's idea, that we're not going to imitate our gurus. We're not going to imitate Rupa and Sanatan. We're not going to imitate the simplicity of Vrindavan, but rather we're going to use all the wealth in this world to show the dignity of what that is, to glorify that, to venerate that. We're not going to take the Babaji dress. That's higher than us. We're not going to artificially renounce the world and pretend we're on some higher plane of devotion. No, the sannyas, this order of renunciation, it's part of the societal system, the varnashrama system. It's part of the societal structure of India. So we're still a part of that. We're not going to pretend we're on some transcendental level. So it was very bold and very revolutionary, everything that he did. And our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, made this interesting point that at the time, nobody could understand. But now everybody understands. Now they see, now the ISKCON movement of Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada in India, it's so highly respected. I think, didn't they put Srila Prabhupada on one of their banknotes or something like that, Like everybody respects ISKCON. Everybody respects Saraswati Thakur, because they see, oh, he knew what he was doing. In retrospect, they knew what he was doing. There was one scholar, he was the head of this group of scholars in Navadvip. in the area where Srila Sridhar Maharaj established his Math. One of the reasons why he established it there, actually, to try to, represent his guru to this group. They'd been anti-Saraswati Thakur. They'd been heavily against him. And later on, the head of this group, he came to realize, oh, now I understand what Saraswati Thakur was about, and he came and he apologized to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, to Srila Sridhar Maharaj as a representative of Saraswati Thakur. And he said, I feel my offense can be rectified by taking prasad in your temple and your mat. And so, and he's, he has laid out, how we practice Krishna consciousness in the modern age. And our Gurudev has, because it can be very bewildering, right? If we look in the lineage, right, how Mahaprabhu, what the example Mahaprabhu showed, the example that the six Goswamis show, the example Bhakti Vinod showed, there are many different examples, so we're following Saraswati Thakur, and our Gurudev mentioned we won't look past him in terms of how we're applying the principles of Krishna consciousness in this age. We won't look past Saraswati Thakur. So he is so crucial to us. And, maybe just, I don't want to go too much over time, but I'll just conclude with this point, because it was like, if we had to choose like one point, which was, most prominent in his preaching, then we could say the principle of Yukta Vairagya, which means proper renunciation, or sometimes rendered as renunciation, and the renunciation in devotion. And this is why he was utilizing all the resources of this world. This principle, not that we're artificially renouncing, but that we're utilizing everything in the service of that plane. And he published this on the front cover, these verses of Rupa Goswami, which define what is proper renunciation, Yukta Vairagya, and what is Falgu renunciation, Falgu Vairagya, false renunciation. On the front cover of every edition, I believe it was a monthly magazine, it may have been weekly, I believe monthly though, but on the front cover of every edition, he published these two verses. Like, that's how much he emphasized. And the first is Anasaktasya Vishayam Yatarham Upayunjata Nirbandha Krishna Sambande Yukta Vairagyam Uchate. To remain internally detached, in regards to the Vishoy, like the material sense objects of this world, to maintain our internal individual detachment, but Nirbandha Krishna Sambande, to see everything in connection with Krishna's interest. Oh, here's a beautiful flower, here's a beautiful man, a beautiful woman, here's so much wealth, and so on. Here's so many delicious preparations. They are all for Krishna's service. They're all to be offered to Krishna, not to be exploited for my own enjoyment, neither to be renounced so that I can uplift myself, but it is all for Krishna. It is all for Krishna. So this was one of his most prominent, it was like the tenor. It was the tenor of his whole preaching, and then also there's this verse that he composed, this Matala Sarujana Vishaya Range, Pujala Ragapata Gorva Bange, that, we are utilizing everything in this world in the service of that higher plane. And Pujala Ragapata, this was another very, highly emphasized point in his movements, that Pujala Ragapata, this is there and we're here, doing puja, doing worship of the spontaneous plane of devotion, not imitating that, but making this clear distinction. It was something, and there was this one occasion, he was sitting between Radha Kund and Shama Kund, like Radha Kund's the highest place in the spiritual sky, such high Leela pastimes are taking place there. And Saraswati Thakur gave a lecture on the Upadeshamrita of Rupa Goswami, starting out with, can you control your tongue? Can you control your belly? Can you control your genitals? Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jiva vegam, udaropasta vegam, etan vegam, yo vishaheta dira, sarvam apimam pritivim sashishat. Then you can make some advancement. Like, you're still in the plane of your senses. Don't delude yourself. Not flying high in some fanciful imaginary world of jumping with Radha and Krishna and the gopis and the cows and Vrindavan. You're here, Okay, we're worshiping that. That's the ideal, but let's recognize where we are. That's the starting point. So that was so much emphasized by him. Srila Sridhar Maharshi, he also told, it was like time after time after time, Srila Sridhar Maharshi told of one occasion, he was having a small residence constructed for himself somewhere in the Vrindavan or Govardhan area. And there was one level that had been completed. And Saraswati Thakur mentioned a second level will be necessary, but I won't stay there. We won't stay there. And so somebody asked, who will stay there in that upper level, upper floor? And Saraswati Thakur said, our gurus will stay there, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, So it was the whole tenor of his preaching. One time he went to visit an old childhood school friend in Vrindavan. And at the time there happened to be this recitation of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, going into the Rasa Leela and some of these higher topics. And Saraswati Thakur just gave his dandavat, gave his obeisance, and he went out. This is too high. This is too high. It was emphasized so much in his conduct. There was another occasion, some gentleman worshiper of Lakshmi Narayan came to visit him. They're having some discussion, and this Vaishnava, he's began glorifying Lakshmi Devi very extensively. And Srila Saraswati Thakur, he started to feel this internal conflict because he's thinking, he's glorifying Lakshmi Devi, but Radharani is supreme. Radharani is supreme, and she is the source of Lakshmi. And really, we must glorify Sri Radha. But then at the same time, he always has this mood of caution. He would not sing in kirtan. He would not sing. He would not dance. And this is in contrast to so many persons who are showing emotion, rolling on the ground, showing tears, supposedly in so much ecstasy. Saraswati Thakur would not sing, would not dance. That was the level of sobriety that he held. But anyway, there's this one occasion, there's this man singing the glories of Lakshmi Devi, and Saraswati Thakur is feeling, we must glorify Radharani. But then at the same time feeling, but her glories are too high to be spoken. So then this conflict within him became so intense that he ended up just fainting and he fell off of his chair. This is Saraswati Thakur. So we are so, really, we could just keep speaking for days about his divine glories. They are never ending, as our Gurudev mentioned. But some little pinch, some little drop, that is so uplifting. So I'm gonna end there. Just thank you all so much for your kind attention and presence. Does anyone want to add any final thoughts before we close for today? Chinmoy Prabhu, anything you want to add? Or okay.
Thanks so much, Vishakha Didi. It was beautiful.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur ki jai. Tadiya Tirobhav Titi Mahamahotsava ki jai. Oh, Chintamani is saying no. Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't get to questions and answers. I'm trying to string you so you'll come for next week. I hope you can come and we can. If you want, we can talk now. I'm happy to keep going. My energy's just gone up after that. So Yeah. What do you think, Jiva?
I'm very happy to stay and ask a couple of questions if you would be
Yeah, sure.
willing. I would be very happy. Thank you.
Okay, yeah,
Very
let's do
kind
it.
of you. Thank you.
Let's do it. So please.
Okay, so okay, let me turn this off. So,
I'll be- grab the tissue.
yes, please. Go for it.
Okay, I'm here.
So first of all, thank you very much for welcoming me, and thank you for that, all those beautiful stories. It's very hard for me to pay attention, so I could only get some bits. That's just how I am. Takes me a long time to get stuff in my head. But my question is this: what is Vaishnavism, being a Vaishnava before Chaitanya? What did that look like? What did it look like before Lord Chaitanya, the avatar, okay, in the Gaudiya Vaishnava, disciplic succession, because there are others, Vaishnavas, who don't accept Chaitanya as the avatar, as an avatar of
Mhm,
Krishna.
mhm,
What did that look like
mhm.
for Chaitanya?
Well, it's an
Think-
interesting question. And actually, it's interesting because we were also talking about this with our new friend Dulal and the other day, and so all these topics are coming up again. I mean, I'm not an expert at all. I have some friends who are very expert. But I mean, we know there. I mean, I think you're probably familiar with the four principal Vaishnava sampradayas, right?
Yes,
And so
I
there
just
were
don't remember all the names, but yes, I'm familiar.
right. So there's we were going through this the other day. We did like a whiteboard. So there's well, we're technically in the line of Madhvacharya.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that's right. Scarlett had a question as well. Yeah, I'm sorry, Scarlett. Welcome, Scarlett. We'll have to get to it maybe next time. Or
I know,
actually,
I'll give it to Scarlett.
actually, Scarlett, I think this was related to your question. Wasn't Scarlett? Oh my God, that's so funny. It's coming up
I
again.
love Scarlett. Hey, Scarlett.
Yeah, we love Scarlett too.
Yeah, hey, Scarlett, if you want to ask your question, please go ahead.
Actually, I think she had the same question as you, funnily enough. That's very interesting.
Scarlett, great minds think alike, darling.
Amazing.
Or addictive, weird minds think alike. Okay.
No. So there are these four principal sampradayas, four principal Vaishnava lineages, and they all have a particular deity who's considered to be the head of the lineage.
Mhm.
And so, so Lord Shiva, the Rudra Sampradaya is one. Lakshmi Devi has hers, the Shri Sampradaya.
Mhm.
And then there's also prominent acharyas, right, in each of those. There's Ramanuja, you think you know all these things. But I don't know if maybe Scarlett doesn't know as much. So, but so there's Lakshmi Devi, the Shri, known as the Shri Sampradaya, Lord Shiva, Rudra Sampradaya, Chatusan, referring to the four Kumaras,
Mhm.
they have their own sampradaya, and then Lord Brahma, right? And then there's also the principal acharyas, like the most prominent,
Mhm.
and in the line of, and so our line technically appears in Lord Brahma's line, right?
Mhm.
And so and then so that line of Madhvacharya. And so the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya, right, is our like kind of
Mhm.
encyclopedia entry.
Right.
And they're worship the four Vaishnava sampradayas, they're worshippers of I mean, Vaishnava means,
Vishnu.
right, Vishnu, who's worshiping Vishnu. And so the Nimbarka line, they worship Radha Krishna.
Mhm.
Madhvacharya's line, they worship Madhvacharya's line, I believe, like Bala Gopal. Maybe is Jayadev with us? Maybe Jayadev or Chinmoy can say it. I believe Madhvacharya's line may worship Bala Gopal.
So I've
Is there
got my
any
notes.
line, are there
in
any
that.
lines of Vaishnav? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, is someone speaking? No. Are there any, is there any lines of Vaishnavism, of Vaishnavas that don't chant? Or do they all chant?
You mean they practice kirtan?
Yeah, or just chanting, like chanting the holy names.
I mean, as far as I know, it's not only Vaishnavas, but I would say any Vedic lineage they chant, you know. You know, I mean, like the Mayavadis, the Mayavadis up to a point, you know, it's a little scary. They look the same as Vaishnavas, you know, they do kirtan, they worship deities, you know, but their approach is different. Their conception is different. They see it all as a means to an end, whereas we see that as the end in itself, the means and the end. So Marie, you were raising your hand. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Scarlett.
Yeah.
It's okay. Do you do the 16 round that it's minimum or not? You do chanting in another way?
You know, this whole thing of like chanting the Maha Mantra on this in this regular way, like it's actually a new thing as far as I understand. There wasn't an initiation for the Maha Mantra previously. There would be an like Diksha initiation. I was actually talking about this a little earlier today with one of my friends who is a real scholar. He actually teaches at Oxford. He's one of our godbrothers. And he was saying there was like amongst the Vaishnavas, there were, you know, they would receive the Gopal mantra, a mantra for Gopal, and the Kama Gayatri mantra, prayer to Krishna. You know, these were like widely what were chanted, you know, what were given at the time of initiation. But like this practice of like in a measured way and like kind of in an official way, receiving initiation into the Maha Mantra, that's a new thing. Yeah, thank you, Chinmoy. It's written out the name of our, you know, line, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya. Like as far as I understand, Saraswati Thakur introduced that. You know, we're going back like 100 years ago, so it's quite a modern, quite
Really new.
Yeah, it's super new.
Well, see, this is my question. This is really my question. So when Chaitanya, when Lord Chaitanya appeared, and he said, all we have to do is chant the holy name. So all of his others, you know, all of, let's say, you know, like Nityananda and Ishvara, Lakshmipati, you know, like all of the disciplic succession, what happened before then? Were they chanting? Were they chanting the holy name? Were they doing kirtan? Were they chanting their rounds on malas? What happened before that? Did that all just come totally new with Chaitanya?
I mean, as far as I understand, I mean, a lot of it was quite new. You know, I mean, we hear that the Maha Mantra was kind of sealed away, right? There wasn't, you know, these Vedic mantras, they weren't made accessible to everyone. It was kind of,
yeah, that's right.
It was kind of like, it was, I mean, I think you know all these things. You know, it was kind of like there was a monopoly on all these things.
Right. Yeah.
So and you know, and this style of like publicly going out and chanting, you know, this
Right.
was
That's what Chaitanya did, right.
a new thing. It was a new thing.
But were they chanting? Were then the monks, you know, were they chanting? And so basically, Lord Chaitanya just took everything that was only for that certain class of men, and I mean just men, yeah.
Well, I mean, see,
took it out to the
I mean,
street.
I mean, another thing is that, you know, there was a pervasiveness of, you know, the Smarta approach. I think you're
Yes.
familiar with that.
I was, yes.
So, but yes, I mean, another thing is that we're in Bengal. Bengal has its own story.
Right.
You know, like really South India, like from what I've gathered, South India is the place where Vaishnavism was more prevalent.
Mhm.
And, you know, I mean, Srila Sridhar, she actually mentioned once, like that was actually kind of part of the story with Mahaprabhu, that he was showing this contrast, right? Because in Bengal, like, you know, the Shakta worship, you know, Kalima, and, you know, this was all very pervasive. And then the the whole like Smarta Brahmin thing, where they're emphasizing the external aspect of things and without spirit of devotion, like that was pervasive in the Bengal area. So of course there would have been a small group. You know, we hear that Advaita Acharya was like a shelter, and he was running some type of a program, but it was quite small.
Did
And-
you know anything about the Alvars? The
Well, the
Alvars?
Alvars are in South India.
Yeah, which is totally different, of course. but-
Yeah, it was a different atmosphere. There in South India, yeah, it was quite different. It was quite different. So-
It's so confusing because I'm asking these questions because at this moment now I've been, you know, into bhakti for 6 years, and I'm really at a point now where I'm just kind of you know, again, questioning everything. You know, I made a promise that I would do my 16 rounds, and I was doing it, but I hate doing rounds. I hate chanting. I can't stand it. I go crazy chanting. It makes me crazy. I get actually really, I don't like to say the word hate. I'm really sorry I said that, but I say it out of frustration, pure frustration, because, you know, my connection with Krishna is so strong, and my need and want and my feelings towards surrender, towards basically my whole bhakti practice is just in 1866, and I'm not interested in anything else. So just to stay at the feet of Krishna, and for me, if I have to chant 16 rounds in a daytime, I feel very I feel like I'm fixing something that's not broken. You know, I can't say that I've ever met a fully 100% surrendered soul, but I can never say that I'm a fully 100% surrendered soul, but I can say that I've felt surrender, and I've had such a strong connection, compartmentalized. I mean, I don't feel surrender on a daily basis. It's impossible, but you know, there are moments in my life where people talk about ecstatic chanting and having the feeling, like I can't even describe the feeling of just knowing that I'm just at that moment in full acceptance and full surrender. It's very fleeting moments I have, but I can't get that through chanting. And if someone can tell me that you can top that with any kind of technique, tell me. I'm willing to try it, but I haven't found anything to top it, nothing. So I'm kind of, you know, I feel like I'm in the wrong place, you know, like I feel totally drawn to bhakti, and but I don't feel, I'm not particularly, I mean, kirtan is all right, it's cool, I'll be there, but like 20 minutes, half hour, and then I'm good. And chanting also maybe, I don't know, I'm not fond of it.
Mhm.
But I love Krishna, and all I want to do is stay surrendered. Like, it's not broken. I just feel like some of these things that we're supposed to be doing, especially my disciplic succession, it just feels weird to me. It doesn't, I'm not comfortable. So that's why I'm bringing this all up.
I see. Well, I appreciate that context, and I appreciate your honesty and your courage, and speaking out in this group.
Yeah,
I
that's easy
also,
for me to-
I also, I'd also like to speak more with you one-on-one. But I can,
Yeah.
I can say a few general points here, and then
Sure.
which is that first of all, like this whole ecstatic chanting that a lot of people talk about, I highly suspect it's not ecstatic chanting, but an emotional, joyful, emotional experience they're going
Yeah.
through. And I applaud them for that, but what is real ecstatic chanting? That's a different category. That's one thing. And another point, which comes to mind, is that it doesn't need to be forced. Actually, I think the thing is you've been presented with a box, and you're not realizing it's okay to not be in that box. Like it's okay to not be attracted to kirtan. I'll tell you my story. Like, I grew up in Krishna consciousness, and my father's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, my mother's Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and I grew up around temples, ISKCON temples, or Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, and I never had any interest in kirtan at all. But for me, it was about our guru, Srila Govinda Maharaj. He was such a highly potent person, and he attracted me so much. And I went to live in India, just to be able to have his association. And I didn't have any interest in kirtan or classes, philosophy, nothing. I just liked to do service, And sometimes I would literally wake up like the time for Mangal Arati at 4:30 a.m. But I wouldn't go to Arati. I would just get on with some service that I had, like that. That's like how much I was like that. And but then it was actually something that came later, after our guru left the world. And it was the person, Acharya Maharaj, Srila Acharya Maharaj, he became the head of our Indian mission, and I was living in India, and he ran this morning and evening program, like 2 hours, mostly kirtan, and you were kind of expected to attend, and so I would just like go there and sit through it to be respectful, but he had so much love for kirtan, Acharya Maharaj, and that just started to rub off on me, and gradually I started to develop this attraction for kirtan. And now I don't like to say these words like we love it and all this, but it's something that attracts me. I can't say that I'm vibrating the pure name and all these things, but it attracts me a lot. But it's just interesting, like seeing the journey, reflecting on the journey that I went through, because I really had zero interest for so many years. And I was at the point where I was giving my whole life serving full time in India, but I didn't have any interest in kirtan. One of my friends, he told me of one place where Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he speaks about how different practitioners, they may have an attraction to different aspects of Krishna consciousness. Some may be attracted to puja, some may be attracted to preaching, to kirtan, some may be attracted to practical services, cooking, sewing for the deity. Some may be attracted to making money and using that in seva. And he says that is something that should be encouraged, and as as they grow and develop, and they're gaining some spiritual wealth by giving their energy in that expression of service, and then gradually it will they will grow and become more well-rounded and naturally become more attracted to other aspects of Krishna consciousness. And so like you're saying, that's okay. And then in the third point I wanted to mention is that we have to reconceive what kirtan is. You know, what is it that is actually unique and special about Vaishnavism in contrast to practically every other practice, every other approach, that it's about building a relationship. Vaishnavism is about the essentials, right? So Krishna's a person. And let's say you love that person. When you love someone, you naturally want to call their name. You know, when you're separated from the person you love, you want to call their name. Like that's actually what kirtan is in essence. It's calling the name of somebody that you love, and particularly in a mood of separation.
Mm.
Like you miss that person so much, you want that person so much, and
I love that mood of separation. It's beautiful.
So that's something that we revere. You know, we don't want to pretend that we have it, and that's what I really appreciate about what you're saying. It's like, thank you so much for being honest and saying that you don't love kirtan. You know, that means like you're actually appreciating what it really is. You know, you're not putting some fanciful thing over, but what is like if someone really appreciates what kirtan is, and they will feel like that. Like, I don't have that type of taste. Mahaprabhu is saying that himself in the Shikshashtakam, right?
I love playing. Oh, sorry.
You know, this is my misfortune. I don't have attraction to your holy name. So you're in a good place.
That's
So
nice.
Go
I
ahead.
mean, I do love playing the kata. I have so much fun. You know, if I'm a part of it, like that's the thing for me. I have to be a part of everything. Like I can't be just like the recipient of people speaking at me, playing kirtan for me or to me. It's like, it's always to me. It's like, it needs to be this exchange. And I crave that exchange, and I don't get it in many places. You know, you go to a lecture and you hear someone talking, and I'm like that's just how I am. I need to be involved. I can't just be. I don't learn like that, you know.
I mean, I think the actual issue here is particular presentations of what kirtan is that you're
That as well. Yes,
really
absolutely.
allergic to. You know?
Absolutely.
That's what
Absolutely.
you-
You know, the thing is, it's like when you said it was presented to me in like this box, and I know that I don't have to fit in a box. Believe me, I know that. My whole life, people tried to put me in a box, and they never succeeded. It worked. But the thing is, I just wanted to have a sincere try. You know, I really wanted to sincerely try and see if it fits. And I'm coming to the conclusion that certain things don't fit. And
Well, you don't need to sign your final will and testament. No, just let it come naturally. It will come. It will come. You know, you don't need to force it. In regards to your chant, like your chanting of rounds, you know, that's something perhaps you can discuss with your guru. You know, if you say like you're struggling with feeling like you're forced to chant 16 rounds and it's spoiling your spirit, then maybe he can make an adjustment. You know,
I don't think so. It's ISKCON. I doubt it.
Mhm.
But he's not. I mean, he's not my official guru. I'm not initiated yet. I haven't been
Oh, I
initiated
see.
anywhere.
I
So
see.
it's like, you know, I'm just kind of looking actually now.
That might actually be part of the issue, you know, that you don't have that connection. And I mean, actually, the traditional approach is that you know, what Swami Maharaj Prabhupada did many things differently because he was in a particular circumstance. But like the traditional model is you receive the name from a guru and then you begin chanting. You know, and that's what was done in the Gaudiya Math. That's what's done still today in our Math. And this is something quite different from you know, the model that we had. So that may be part of the issue, that you don't have that connection yet. So that's another thing to consider.
Mm-hmm. Nice, thank you. I would love to talk with you if you ever had.
Yeah, Chintamani can give you
arrange
my
it.
number.
Okay.
You're on WhatsApp or
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, yeah, I think it'd be good to talk one-on-one. We can
Yeah,
talk.
I would like that. Thank you, everybody, for being so patient and listening to all of this very much. And thank you for answering so wonderfully.
I really love your mood. You're just real, and we need more of that. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah,
Oh.
I don't know how to, I don't know how to do anything else. It's always been, yeah,
Dr. Jim wants to say something.
sure.
There's one disciple of Prabhupada named Guru Kripa, and he told Prabhupada right from the beginning, he told him, he said, listen, Swamiji, I can't follow these rules and regulations. I'm not going to do it, but I want to serve Krishna. So Prabhupada made an exception for him. And so the way I understand Vaishnavism and Krishna consciousness, we accommodate everyone. One time, Himavati was sewing clothes for the deities in Europe, and Prabhupada came and examined her sewing work for like 20 minutes, scrutinizing, looking at her sewing. And he nodded at her and said, yes, one can become perfect just by sewing. So, Vishaka, you already covered this beautifully in your 3 points. There's nothing I can add except to encourage Jivaji, do what works for you and just stay connected to Krishna, however that shows up for you, just go for it. And Krishna will accept you because everyone is serving Krishna in their own unique capacity. Even the demons are serving Krishna. Just like the government sometimes takes prison inmates and puts them on the fire lines fighting big wildfires. And they get paid like $1 an hour, but they get to get out of their cells for the day and they get to work. So everyone is employed in the service of Krishna. So there's nothing wrong with you. And like Vishaka, I also respect your candor and you being real. I think it's wonderful. So be real, say what you feel, and serve Krishna in your own unique capacity. And Krishna already loves you so much no matter what you're doing. So I think it's great. I really do. And powerful, everyone. Thank you all. I just love this group.
Thank you so much, Jim. That means a lot to me. Means a lot to me. Thank you so much, you guys, really.
That was a really important point, Bhakti Jim, that you've brought up. And I'm so glad you added that because it is so true. And that's something that I observed so much in our guru, that he would adjust the rules on an individual basis. Like for him, it was primary that everyone's devotional mood is encouraged at whatever level they're at. So I'm really glad that you added that point.
Thank
Sorry,
you. Oh, thank you, Gandalita. You guys are the best. Thank you. I'll get your number. I'm sure Chintamani already sent it, if I know her well.
All right.
Not yet. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, I look forward to speaking more.
Me too. You're in California, right?
I was a few days ago. I'm in Hungary now and traveling to London tomorrow.
Oh, good. So you're in my time zone. This is good.
Oh, where are you?
I'm in Germany. So
Oh, you're in Europe as well. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
be in Europe for the next few months. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Great. I thought you're, oh, that's right. Yeah. Then you're going to India, right?
In February. Mhm.
I will see what I can do to meet you there. I talked to already. I'll be there as well.
That's exciting. And Scarlett also wants to talk. Yeah, sure, Scarlett. I don't know if we're on WhatsApp, but you can get my number
Oh, that's
from
on WhatsApp.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna let everybody go. And Chinmoy is being very patient, our host. Thank you so much.
No, it's always very much we need to hear this day in, day out. So today is a beautiful day. We had some Krishna Katha. Jai.
Jai. Jai. Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Siddhar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Daksha Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai. All the assembled devotees, sincere seekers ki Jai. Shri Harinam Singh Jai. Jai Gaur
Haribo. Jai Vishaka Devi.
Haribo.
Jai.